All right. Okay. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us again. My name is Simran, and I'm with Canopy. Canopy is a co-working space based in San Francisco. And today, for part of our Thursday Wellness series, we've got Eli Walker, who is a happiness consultant. I love that. I love your title of happiness consultant. And she's also the founder and CEO of Drunk Yoga. She's also going to be, so today she's going to be talking to you, taking you all through an exercise using her original define your story teachings. So, Eli, all you.
Great. All right, I'm just pulling up my notes here. I had a tech issue when I was sitting in a sunroom and my computer overheated. So as I'm pulling up my notes, I appreciate the great introduction. As she said, I'm a happiness consultant and I am the founder and CEO of Drunk Yoga. And I am based in New York City. And before I tell you a little bit more about my background and my history and how I came to create something called Divine Your Story, I would love to get your brains working on the subject. So while I'm still fiddling with my email here, I want to ask you guys, what do you think happiness means? And then second question, what are reasons that you might feel unhappy? I know it sounds like a kindergarten teacher question, but it gets your brains churning, and I have a point of resolution. So you can either raise your hand and speak or put it in the chat box. What makes you happy? What does happiness mean to you? And what are reasons that you might be unhappy?
You can either digitally raise your hand, or as Eli said, you can pop it in the chat box. But I can say what makes me unhappy. I think a lot of people are thinking about this right now. Uncertainty.
Yes, absolutely. Sorry. Um, I hate to do this, but I'm having an issue with my event at Drunk Yoga, and I have to pause and I have to quickly deal with this, and then I will come back to you guys with more thoughts on happiness. In the meantime, why don't you guys each write down 5 answers to each of those questions. What makes you happy? It could be anything from your pet to your job to your family or connection. What makes you unhappy? And then we'll talk about what those 2 things have in common. Just 1 second, and I'm really sorry.
No worries. So if everyone just like go ahead and what makes you happy and what does not make you happy, just pop it in there. You can also send it to me privately, and then when Eli comes back, she'll be able to touch on all that and share her thoughts on it. I see that Ali's written what makes you feel unhappy is feeling lost and uncertainty, which is similar to what I said about feeling uncertain during these times. Does anyone else have anything to add to it? Thanks, Philip, for adding your thoughts. Stress, yes, stress is definitely a big one. communication is key. Yeah, I agree with you again, Ali. And it can be very frustrating when there's just a complete miscommunication, or like when no one's listening to you. Hi, Eli. Thanks for coming. There's a few people that have added in the chat box what some of their feelings are.
Mood swings, been there. Yeah, communication. So that's exactly where I was getting with this. It's connection. Anytime that we feel happy, it's because we feel like we're in the right place at the right time and connected to others. Anytime that we feel unhappy, it's because we have a feeling of isolation or a sense of separateness to others. So it all comes down to community, which is a buzzword these days that people are throwing around left and right because it is important. But I feel like we're lacking substantial conversation about what it means to be truly connected to a community, how we can serve it, and how we can benefit from it. Right. So your relationship with yourself must coexist with your relationship to others. My theory is dis-ease or unhappiness, often but not always, because sadness is a complex topic, is often a result of feeling isolated, like I said. When I consult with individuals on happiness and companies on the art of cultivating happiness, I use mindfulness exercises and yogic philosophy, which you'll experience today, and personal storytelling exercise to help you realize, one, the essence of community, two, your role in your community so you can regain a sense of purpose. Feeling purposeful has a huge impact on your happiness. Three, gain insights that foster a sense of empathy and compassion for others. Again, connection sparks joy. No man is an island. And four, how to live rightly or with integrity rather than living righteously. And this is a big one. You see the difference, saying and doing what's right and honest and kind rather than denying other people's truths in order to defend your own stories. It's all about coming together rather than saying, am I right or are they right? Is this true or is that true? And side note, it's no secret that we live in a very individualistic society here in America, and our tendency is to support being righteous over doing what's right in consideration of others' happiness. And that's a symptom of what I think is toxic individualism, and we're seeing it exposed in a big way right now, particularly around mask wearing, which we won't talk about today. But I use that as a reminder that the basis of this work is to teach that everything you see is true. Everything you see is true, but so is everything you don't see. So the question you should ask yourself is not, is this true or is that true? It's, why am I seeing this truth and not all of the other truths that could make me happier by helping me develop empathy and compassion for other perspectives. So today, this Divine Your Story exercise will help you hopefully develop a technique to be able to spark more empathy with others and subsequently feel more happy. All right. It's going to be through a personal storytelling exercise. If we have time for sharing at the end, we will. At the end, I'll also provide you with my contact information and a generous discount code for all Canopy attendees today to book a one-on-one session with me virtually to keep digging into this happiness work. I also want to note, if you see me sort of looking down at my computer, it's because I'm following along with my notes. I get very passionate about self-authorship and the esoteric topic of cultivating joy. And typically this workshop is 2.5 hours. So for the purpose of today, I've consolidated it and I'm sticking to my notes so I don't lose you on a tangent. So before we dive in, I just want to share some more context about who I am and where I came from to give you an idea of how Divine Your Story came to be. So I hail from Wisconsin. If you're from the Midwest, we can chat about that after. I'm from Wisconsin and I came to New York City, Tisch School of the Arts for acting. So I went to New York City, Tisch School of the Arts for acting, New York University, and I developed a passion for community-based theater, experimental theater, or interactive performance art, if you will. Community-based theater is not to be confused with community theater, which is what you all do, we do in our hometowns when we're kids. Community-based theater is a very unique art that where theater goers travel into already existing communities, learn everything about them, understand all their perspectives, listen to them, and help create a live theatrical performance art piece where the members of the community are the players. And they do so to tell a story, to be able to heal an issue that they're having a hard time finding consensus on. And through the play, through the theater, they find catharsis and subsequently joy through empathy and understanding. All right. So I fell in love with that. Of course, after I graduated, I took the more conventional route, TV and film and commercials, and I wasn't very happy doing that for all of the reasons people get burnt out going on auditions. And then I found yoga, and I found a lot of parallels as I was doing my yoga teacher training between the healing art of storytelling and the healing art of what it means to teach a yoga class, teach a group of people, guide them through mindful movement and verbiage like a script in such a way that brings everyone to this group catharsis and a newer insight into what it means to be human. I loved it. I wanted to figure out a way to combine storytelling and community-based theater with yoga for a long time. It took me years to really develop a concrete method, which is divine your story. At that moment, I was young when I was doing my yoga teacher training. And I had a terribly abusive relationship with my yoga teacher that we can talk about at another talk and another day, which is not all too uncommon. I now know. And I say it was spiritually abusive as well as other realms of other forms of abuse. I say it was spiritually abusive because this teacher would say things to me like, when it served him, like, well, I need you to lend me $8,000 because for you, it's an exercise in unconditional trust. And I would say, okay. And then me being the young person from Wisconsin farmland that I gave him $8,000. And then when it was time for him to give it back, he said, oh, well, I'm not going to give it back because this is this is a lesson for you in unconditional non-attachment. And so he would say spiritually abusive and manipulative things like that. Don't worry, I got my money back eventually. But I started to learn that there's a lot of ways to use spirituality and this idea of the marriage between divine orchestration, what we don't have control over, and what we do have control over. To sort of extract myself from a rather toxic yogic situation, I did what you do when you're 25 and having an existential quarter life crisis, and I went to India. I bought a one-way ticket to India and traveled around for 6 months, as you do, looking for the meaning of life. And I learned a lot. I had great experiences, but I was tired, as you become after 6 months of backpacking across India by yourself. So I thought I would decompress in Thailand. So I went to Thailand and, of course, developed a crush on my scuba diver instructor. So I went over to his house to watch a movie. He went out to, I think, get some pizza or something. And then I walked out onto this like porch roof. I fell through the roof and I damaged my back pretty bad. I didn't break it per se, but I did crack a bunch of ribs. I like tore both my shoulders. I dislocated all sorts of things. It was not a good situation. So I was left there pretty immobile for a couple of months. In that couple of months, I continued to ruminate on this idea between marriage, the marriage of divine orchestration and free will. And I came to lots of cool insights regardless. When I came back to New York City, I still had to make some decisions. Was I going to be an actress or a yoga teacher? All the things you have to decide about your career when you're 25 and make some life choices. When I got back to New York, I was very depressed. I had a very damaged back, so I couldn't teach yoga and I couldn't act. I was so sick, my hair was falling out. Like that's how damaged my body was. I was depressed. I was so sad. I'd lost all my friends because I'd spent so much time investing my energy into this toxic yoga studio. I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment in the basement of an East Village street with 2 other people. I had no privacy, no sense of boundaries, no health resources, no family nearby. And I was so sad. I'd never experienced such sadness before, just total purposelessness, a lack of a reason to go on. I figured in one particularly dark moment, we all have them, and you think, well, I could just call it quits, or I could pick myself up, put on my big girl pants and figure it out. And so in that moment, I I decided to use my life as an experiment to see how one could quite literally construct a container that could house joy. I knew joy was out there. I knew happiness existed. I just couldn't seem to catch it. Like, I feel like I didn't have, like, if happiness was grace, like water raining down, I lacked the bucket that could catch it. I just had no structure in my life that would even entertain the idea of happiness. And so I tried. I picked myself up, and piece by piece, I used the word construct quite deliberately. I constructed a house, figuratively speaking, a container for joy. I figured out how to eat healthier. Sounds simple, but it's a game changer. I found a new yoga studio called Katona Yoga that was much more matriarchal rather than, I say, patriarchal. Not so traditional, but pretty cool and progressive. Like, she would situate herself in the middle of the yoga class, and we'd all surround. So it was much more inclusive. She would use cool Taoist metaphor and philosophy in the class, integrated with sacred geometry and hatha yoga, that sparked all sorts of ideas for me on how to integrate performance in different ways with yoga to help people cultivate joy. So I went there every day. I started surrounding myself consciously with great people. And slowly but surely, in acts of self-care, I created a container that had no room for suffering and only housed joy. And I did it quite methodically. And I thought, this is pretty cool. So in an effort to create a more concise methodology that could marry my love for acting and yoga, so I didn't have to choose between them, I created this Divine Your Story monologue writing technique that will help you quite literally deconstruct a life narrative. A life narrative being like, my mother-in-law hates me, or I don't have enough money to be an entrepreneur, or I'm going to be single forever. All of these truths that we all carry, that's not necessarily the truth, but it's a truth that we believe and it runs our lives. How to deconstruct those stories, get to the bottom of them through understanding where the perspective that informs them, back it up to the container that's housing them, and then change it. Use the monologue writing to rewrite it in a more joyful direction. So it's a great exercise I'm going to show you today, and we're going to do it. And while I was coming up with all of this, you might be wondering what drunk yoga is. So I'm just going to tell you real quick. While I was coming up with Divine Your Story and creating retreats and workshops, I was getting really excited about all sorts of ways to make yoga a little bit more accessible to people through just the art of making it joyful. None of the toxic stuff, the spiritual abuse, the exclusivity, the green juice, the expensive leggings, just the joy of mindful movement and community. So then I walked into a bar in 2017. It was a bar I used to work at. And the owner said, "Oh my gosh, Eli, you're a yoga teacher. You should teach me yoga. I can't even touch my toes." And then he bent over, and sure enough, he touched his toes. So he said, "Oh, I guess I can do it when I'm drunk." And jokingly, I said, "Let's just do drunk yoga." But of course, that idea ruminated, and I realized that's actually pretty brilliant. What better way to make yoga accessible than by turning it into a party, by infusing it with a happy hour? So I did that. I was the first, and so I provocatively called it drunk yoga, and it went very viral very quickly in September, I guess October of 2017, and then all of a sudden these classes were sold out. Oh, thank you, Philippe, for the encouragement. So drunk yoga became a bit of a sensation. Divine Your Story took a back burner while I was building drunk yoga. We're now nationwide. We've got teachers in LA, Dallas, and New York. And we run all sorts of cool corporate team building events, birthday parties, customizing cool ways to make yoga interactive through a drink in hand and games. Now, that's what we were doing. Now I'm finding a way to resurface Divine Your Story, because I think that the art of happiness through community, really learning how to cultivate joy by interacting with others, is now needed more than ever. And in my perspective, drunk yoga and Divine Your Story both do that, just in different ways. So Divine Your Story is being resurfaced. I'm happy to share it with you today. I'll share all those links with you after. I'm just going to take a look at my notes again to see where we are. All right. So I want to take a step back when I returned to New York City with my back injury. Again, no job, no friends. I was trying to figure out how to build a physical structure via a container. The container is a physical structure for your life that you choose and can be changed. Right? This is a very esoteric concept. So a container can be changed through the clothes that you wear, the food that you eat, the house that you live in, the friends that you surround yourself with, your daily routine when you get up in the morning, etc. And all of these things combined build the container that informs the perspective that tells the story of your life. So the container that you build, how you physically live your life in the structure, anything that's movable and changeable, creates the perspective, gives you the world view that tells the story of your life. All right, so we're gonna look at the container aspect of this in just a moment. If you haven't already, grab a pen and a paper because we're gonna do some writing in just a moment. Fun fact, I looked up the definition of happiness on Google just to see. I'm really now obsessed with this idea of how can we create happiness as an art form. And Google said, it's the state of being happy, as in the opposite of sad. And I was just thinking, cool. Yeah, thanks, Google. Get it. My favorite definition of happiness is defined by the creator of Katoni Yoga, which I just mentioned, the more matriarchal, progressive version of yoga that I loved. The creator, her name is Naveen Mishan, and she's brilliant. And she always says to us, happiness, that ping of joy, that spark of joy, happens when you are in the right place at the right time, literally, but also figuratively. The right place at the right time translates to you feeling secure in the present moment in time and space. Yoga inadvertently teaches us this through postures and breath. This teaches us to recognize the difference between the moment and the one who is experiencing the moment. Those of you who meditate know exactly what I'm talking about. It's the difference between the one who is meditating and the one who is observing the one doing the meditating. And all of this helps us to refine our physical relationship to the world around us in relationship to our physical bodies. What space are we inhabiting and how are we doing it? Now, storytelling, on the other hand, helps us to refine our relationship to ourselves and our circumstances by holding up a mirror to our own experiences through the eyes of another. And you guys know this, books and movies and plays, that's why we love them. Art is just another way to find God in ourselves through another. God is in great nature. Now, again, I always saw a lot of parallels between the healing art of yoga and the healing art of storytelling. This Divine Your Story workshop marries yogic philosophy with the language of theater to provide you with a technique to identify your narratives, how they came to be, and how to rewrite them as the author of your own life story in a more empowered, joyful direction. When I hit this point home too, I mean, you could be sad or you could be happy or you could be anywhere in between. The universe doesn't have much of a personal investment in your happiness, unfortunately. I think we all like to think that was sort of my biggest chip on my shoulder about a lot of the yogic, traditional yogic language I say that's more modern, like the universe cares about you. And it doesn't. The universe cares about following its laws. It has its nature. It has its thing, all the laws of nature. It does its thing. It runs by its rules. We have 4 seasons. We have the months. We have night. We have day. The universe is going to keep on doing its thing, whether you like it or not. So whether or not you can identify yourself in the center of your circumstances, recognize all of the gifts that the universe gives us in order to be happy, understand that if you go outside and it's winter, you should wear a coat. If you don't, you'll be unhappy. That's what I mean by that. It's up to you to cultivate your own joy in relationship to the laws of the universe as an intelligent being. Understand that, if you wear a coat then in the summer and you're really hot, that's on you. If you're miserable because you're sweating. And that's sort of the philosophy behind all of this. Yes, the universe exists. It has all these cool laws. There's divinity. There's all sorts of cool things out there and energies that we don't control. That's the divine part of Divine Your Story. But it's your story. It's up to you to write it. It's up to you to tap into these laws of nature and then do what you will with them. So just one more time for the people in the back. The universe has no personal investment in your happiness, only you do. All right. The first step is to recognize ourselves as the storyteller or the author, rather than the hero of the story. And there's a difference there. Again, there's the center of your circumstance, you in the middle, mediating the circumstances. And then there's you playing the character or characters you need to in your life in order to keep up with the theater of reality. I call it the theater of reality because I like to say that reality is just 2 or more people believing the same story. It's all a bit theatrical, this life thing. And when we recognize this position of power that we do have, we can begin to deconstruct those containers in our lives that house our perspectives. And then the world is our oyster. All right, I'm going to break this down for you one more time in case you do have a pen and paper now. The essence of this workshop is to teach you that your container is anything that is movable or changeable in the physical realm. Your house, your car, your friends, your clothes, your physical habits, how you speak, and your daily routine. Your story is the narrative thread that flows through the container. Today, we'll look at one story in your life that's not serving your joy. And we will discover this technique to deconstruct and then reconstruct and refine a new container that can house a new perspective that offers a more empowering, joyful story. Only because being joyful is great, not because you need to be, but because it feels good. And if we can, we should. Container, change the perspective, change the story. All right, we're moving on to the exercise. Actually, I like to give this one story as an example. So to bring this back down from the ethers and into real life, an example I use is, say that you've lived in an apartment or a house for years with your fiance, and all of your memories in this apartment are with your fiance who you loved, who made you feel great. And then say one day you found out your fiance cheated on you or something terrible happened and you broke up. But you still live in this apartment, and every day all you can think about is your fiance and the romance that never was, and you're miserable. You can't force happiness, a happy story, in a miserable container. You're living in a container, quite literally, in the container of this apartment that makes you unhappy. And you know it, and you know why. It's not rocket science. Happy stories can't live in miserable containers. If you're hungover, you can't force yourself to be really jovial at a conference meeting. And that's because you have a hungover container. You have to eat well, treat yourself well, sleep well, move into an apartment that makes you feel happy, full of plants and new pets and people that make you happy. And then you will be able to write a happy story. It's more of a tangible example. Or at yoga, exactly. All right, so here's the exercise, you guys. It has 3 parts to it, and we have plenty of time to do it. So I want you to take your time in the writing. I'm going to give you plenty of time. But please ask me questions. I'm here looking at the chat, so ask me questions on anything that feels weird. This is a weird thing. First, I'm going to walk you through the 12 stages in which we experience stories. I love to talk about stages because, one, it's theatrical language, and I'm a theater dork. And 2, these 12 stages relate to astrology. They relate to astrology in that astrology has 12 houses. I love astrology when I work with my happiness consulting one-on-one and coaching. I always do my clients' astrology chart first, so we know what we're working with. That's the divine part of Divine Your Story. We know what stardust we're working with. So with astrology, there's all sorts of cool stories that you can derive from the planet, the language of the stars. And 12 houses relate to the 12 stages of our lives. And this is where this comes from. So please write this down. I can also copy and paste it into the chat box when we're done, so you can do it again on your own. The first stage, of course, is personal or self. So anything that relates to personal self-growth, self-care, personal healing. And then stage 2 is money. Stage 3 is childhood or creativity. They're related. And stage 4 is your home life. Stage 5 is love, romantic love, and self-expression. 2 sides of the same coin. 6 is health and daily work. 7 is relationships. Like that would be one-on-one relationships. It doesn't have to be romantic. It could be your partner or your best friend, but anything one-on-one where you're relating to another. 8 is the unconscious. So that's anything under the surface that you can't see. So that would be debt, surgery, dreams, anything under the surface that you can't really see in daylight. 9 is education and travel. 10 is career. 11 is community, your tribe, your friends, your people. And then 12 is spirituality, and that's to mean your relationship to spirit, God, karma, your past, baggage that you're still carrying. Those are the 12 houses. So in this exercise, step 1, there's 7 steps here. Step 1, I want you to identify a stage in your life of the 12 that I just listed that you're working on, that needs the most attention. And you guys, I just want to remind you that the stakes are so low here. This is an exercise, it's a workshop just to get the juices flowing so you can have some ideas about how to cultivate joy in your life. So I don't want you to stress about any of these answers. There's no wrong answer. So answer the question, the first one, what stage in your life for you, even just today, needs the most work, so to speak? All right, and then in that stage, we're gonna identify a story. Remember, a story is simple, it's not a novel, it's, I can't afford X, Y, and Z. My mother-in-law is gonna hate me forever. I hate my brother. Something personal, you don't have to get political or anything today, something like a personal story that keeps you feeling stuck or angry. Another way to say this is that it's a truth that feels true in the moment, but it's not actually the truth. And on some level, you know that. So identify a story. I'm going to give you a minute to do that. And if you have questions on your story, you can write me in the chat box. If you don't want to share it with anyone, you can just personally write me. Oh, sorry, I just saw this. Stage 10 or 11. Stage 10, Pamela, is career. Stage 11 is community, tribe. I'll just copy and paste that list for you guys. Stories can be tricky if you've never thought about it before, and I'm pretty good at helping you narrow it down. So if you have a general idea and you want to shoot it over to me, I can help you narrow it down to get a good, solid 1-sentence story. And I'll give you like 45 more seconds, okay? Say this is the most important step. So I don't want to move on until everyone has a story. So I'm going to do something annoying and ask you all to give me like a thumbs up or say yes in the chat box when you're ready to go, so I don't jump the gun. Because unless you have this piece of it, the rest of the exercise will be a little choppy. Cool. Love the thumbs up. Thanks, Amanda. Admittedly, I am actually not sure how to do that on Zoom, so I'm impressed. Cool. Thumbs up. Thumbs up. Thanks. Thank you. And while we're still working, I do want to apologize for having to step away at the beginning. We're also teaching a drunk yoga event right now in New York. One of our drunk yoga teachers is leading. I got to tell you, Mercury's in retrograde because we were having issues on the other Zoom call, which is the issue. All right. So for the most of you, we got a thumbs up. I'm going to keep going. Step 2. I want you to identify the author. All right, you guys, this is you as the author, as the storyteller. This is the one telling the story, not to be confused with the character you're playing in your life, but this is you as the storyteller. This is who you tuck into bed at night, you without the makeup. This is you at your essence. A couple of sentences about who you are, and another note, not too general, right? So I want you to speak about who you are as it relates to this story in this stage. Not to be confused with who you want to be, who you think you are, who you are as it pertains to this story in this stage. Tell you a story I tell myself all the time is I'm going to be single forever. And the person I am in my heart when I'm in that stage of relationship and I believe that story is someone who is defensive and is sort of angry and defiant, maybe at men or herself. That's sort of the verbiage we're looking for. It's not something I would probably tell anyone else. Maybe not anyone would notice, but at the core, that's the author of that story. So as long as you've got that written down, I'm going to move on. In fact, I appreciate that these steps can take some time to ruminate. So I'm going to go ahead and post each one after I say it. That's step 1 and 2. I just put it in the chat box. Now, step 3. This is probably the trickiest to grasp. Who is the narrator? And again, the narrator is the character that you've subscribed to yourself, that you cast yourself as. The lens through which the author views or tells the story, the character you're playing in this stage and this story. This is the one who puts on the shoes and goes out into the world. Just write a couple of sentences about who is the narrator, the character, the hero of this journey. Tangible things like, what do they wear? How do they feel? How do you speak to others? I'm going to give you about another 60 seconds on that to think about the character that you're playing that supports this narrative. Please let me know if you have any questions. I know this is all real weird. Okay. The next step, who are the other important characters in your story? So what friends do you have around you who are supporting this story? What family members play a role in making the story true for you? Maybe it's the guy at the deli who gives you your bagel every morning. Maybe that's just a New York thing. All right, that one's pretty easy, so I'm going to move on. Step 5, describe the environment your narrative is taking place. So this is more about the container, the literal environment that supports the story, the house that you live in, again, the weather outside, where this story takes place. Where are you? I was working with a client just yesterday, and she described very clearly that her narrative came into play in the environment, mostly like when she first wakes up in the morning. So her environment is pretty clear. It's in bed, it's morning time. It's about 7 o'clock in the morning when she feels this narrative coming on. You can be as specific as that, or it can be a little bit more vague. I'm always really self-conscious when I say the word vague because in Wisconsin we say vag, like how you would say bag, we say vag, and I have been told by many East Coasters that that is incorrect. So I have to very carefully say vague. I'm being distracting. You guys write about the environments that your story takes place in. Okay. Now, number 6, we're almost there. If your perspective and story never changed, what's the journey of your character in the story? This is usually a little darker. So if my perspective of this idea that I'm going to be single forever never changed, I would have to think about the character that I'm playing in life that supports that narrative. And if I never changed it, if I never got my act together and decided to put some work into changing that belief, where would I be in 10 years? Who would I be in the world? Would it affect other realms, other perspectives I have in my life about other people in relationships or my family? Would it affect where I want to live? I'm going to give you about 2 minutes for this one. All right, I'm going to move on to the final question. Number 7 in this series is, how would you like to change it? And you guys, this is your story. Keyword is like. How would you like to change the story? Forget all the if, ands, or buts about it, all of the conditions that surround it. Pretend that life is infinite and you can be happy as much as you want to be happy. Pretend you can have anything you want. How would you like to change this narrative? Okay, so that's number 7. Now, that was sort of the precursor to the monologue writing exercise. All of that was the work to help you. If you were ever an actor, you know that that's the character work. That's all the work that you do to figure out who this character is, why they believe what they believe. And this, I just kind of turned it on you as an individual. Why do you believe what you believe? Where did that belief come from? How does it affect your character? How does it affect how you view the world and how you treat others? That's what that work is. Really getting to the bottom of that story. And now the monologue writing exercise is another 7 steps. I'm going to dictate the prompts to you, 7 prompts, and then I'll paste them in there. I want you to hear it first. So step 1, sidebar. This story, whatever story you've chosen, and I can't wait to hear them, whatever story that you've chosen to work with today, it is either about you or it is about someone else. And that's it. So in the acting world, a monologue can only be directed to somebody. Otherwise, it's just ranting thoughts. An effective monologue that can affect a cathartic change must be directed to somebody else or to yourself. So while you're writing this, decide, are you speaking to your mom? Are you speaking to a child? Are you speaking to your boss? Are you speaking to yourself, past or future? All right, so first prompt. This is how I feel about you and this is why. This is how I feel about you and this is why. But I'm here to tell you that blank isn't working. But I am here to tell you that blank isn't working. 3, this isn't working because. 4, the life I envision for myself is one where. The life I envision for myself is one where. Could be anything you want. And 5, and in order to create this life, I need to release anything you want. Be creative. In order to create this life, I need to release. 6, but before I can move forward, I need you to know. Before I can move forward, I need you to know. And finally, 7, thank you for. I just pasted it in the chat for reference. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to do this. So we can leave about five or so minutes at the end to share. Please feel free to message me any questions privately. All right, let me know, you guys, if you still need a little more time. And if not, would anybody like to share or ask any questions about their monologue? Would anybody like to share their monologue?
I think we've got some, yeah, maybe some stories a little bit too personal. Oh, Philip's still typing his. Okay, so we'll wait for that.
Gotcha. Then I'm going to give you guys a couple more minutes. It takes time. In the meantime, you guys, I'm going to send my links. If you want to talk to me about your monologue personally, I'm going to give you the link to schedule a 30-minute free consult with me. I would be more than happy to give you any feedback or guidance on how to dissect anything that didn't make sense and how to refine the technique so you can use it for more stories in the future. So I went ahead and pasted all those links for everyone, where to find me and where to set up a consult if you want to just talk one-on-one. If you want to get access to all of the things that we did today in more of an email format, just email me at hello@eliwalkerprojects.com and I can send you a PDF. I want to leave you today with two more things. An action step, just to think about after doing all of this work in the monologue and identifying a story, to keep in mind about what you can do going forward to help you create a new container that can house your rewritten script. So my hope is that after doing this work, we sped through it, but my hope is that after doing this work, you have some idea about how you would like to rewrite the narrative that was not previously serving your joy. So I want to leave you thinking about what you can change in your environment, in your physical routine, that will help you create a new container that will house more joy. And if everyone is okay with meditating, I love to end my Divine Your Story workshops with a bit of guided meditation. So assuming we're all okay with that, you may continue writing, or you may sit up nice and tall and close your eyes. And as you're sitting up nice and tall with your eyes closed, go ahead and relax your shoulders and take a big deep breath in and exhale. And another big inhale on a count of 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold the breath at the top. And a long, slow exhale. Now, as you're sitting quietly with your eyes closed and your spine tall, empty yourself so you have space for consciousness to move through you. Relax into the complexity that's always arising from a mind and body which have never been split. Asking, where am I going? What am I doing? Remembering to remember. On the next exhale, release the investment in doing. Feeling the movement of air through the nostrils. Soften the jaw. Experience the space inside of the skull. Controlling the breath makes you feel more in control of your circumstances. Understanding that for everything in life, there is a beginning, a middle, and an end. And your potential is in front of you. And your memories are behind you. And the innocence of your heart is on the left. Your experience and your vision is on the right. Fires rise up from below you. Waters pour down from above you. And you put yourself at the center of it, equally available to receive the information from any direction. The inhalation is spontaneous. In between the grace and effort is you. At the center of your practice is always you, inhaling into the personal. And on the exhale, you participate with the planetary. Enjoying that marriage between grace and effort. The artist developing technique to become powerful, to be in the eye of your storm. If you are really in the center of your circumstances, you can see what's going on around you and make conscious choices that serve you. With that as the guiding principle, establishing yourself in a form that is formal, a form that is functional. And once you've organized yourself, you make contact. You connect with others. Taking this last moment to be grateful, to now be living in this container that is open, your body that is spacious and gracious and full of light, feeling empowered and confident to be flowing with the currency that tells a story that brings you peace and love, appreciating this moment and all of its potential. Take one more big deep inhale together. Hold the breath at the top, ripe and full. And my friends, when you are ready to let go of everything that no longer serves you, you may exhale. And you can continue with your eyes closed, breathing into this new spacious container housing this new story. Or you can open up your eyes and carry on with your day. I would love to hear from you and see how this went. Any feedback is welcome. If you want to hang out and keep chatting, I'm available for that as well. As always, ask me any questions or reach out to me one-on-one. Last time, those links are in the chat box to stay in touch. I've got the link for my personal website, for Divine Your Story website, this workshop, as well as Drunk Yoga. If you want to find out, we do a lot of great virtual drunk yoga experiences every week, and it'd be great to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Eli. That felt really good, doing that little exercise with you. And I have recorded this, and I'm actually going to listen to it again because I feel like every stage there's something I need to to work on. So thank you so much, and for the people that are also in this meeting, in this event. If you want to reach out to Eli, as she mentioned, she'll be giving a 30-minute free consultation for everyone over here. And yeah, thank you. And I hope that we can do this again soon. And if you want to get paired up with one of our other speakers from our wellness series, that would be great too. All right, everybody.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right, thank you. Bye.
Have great weekends. Bye.